How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. There is no off-ramp for a lot of Bitcoiners. They're stuck. They're stuck in Bitcoin. I want to talk about that here today, and there's something that we need. There's something we need. I'm going to call on Brian Harrington to make a video about this. I think this would be fascinating, and I think it would convert a lot of people over to be even more hardcore in their Bitcoin stacking. If you don't mind, hit subscribe. Turn on the bell notification underneath the video so you can see future videos just like this. Also, if you want to trade Bitcoin, if you want to trade other financial assets to get more Bitcoin, there are links underneath the video. One is to Margex, where you can leverage trade. Of course, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure that you understand the risks before signing up. But definitely check out that link. There's no KYC. You don't need a VPN, so that way people don't know, how much you're actually trading with, or maybe they know how much, but they don't know who you are. Definitely check that link out underneath the video. They're doing a big Caspa airdrop as well. But let's start here. Brian Harrington. He is a YouTuber. I've been friends with him for years. He makes all his videos on Bitcoin. Now, he makes a lot of videos as well about getting paid in Bitcoin, Bitcoin stacking, a lot of things that maybe like really hardcore Bitcoiners have thought about, have tried to explore, and he gives like kind of his viewpoints on this because he actually has lived on Bitcoin before. Like he gets paid in Bitcoin. And I think he's made a couple good points here today over the last 24 hours, actually, in a video. I want to play that one for you too, but let me show you. He believes that, it makes sense for some people to actually get paid in Bitcoin. Let me play this for you though.
I use this across videos, but my thing is how much of your personal finances have to do with Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin just a side bolt-on thing or a long-term savings account? That's great and that's awesome. For more and more people, as the years begin to stack up of doing this, and as the tools continue to get better, and as the Bitcoin personal finance world continues to get better, I think there's going to lead to a 10 to 100x increase in the amount of W-2 employees that are direct depositing their paycheck to Bitcoin. Because, in my opinion, across all time frames, long or short, Bitcoin is better than dollars. Fundamentally, I believe Bitcoin is better than dollars, both from my own personal perspective, but also from a societal perspective. And so I have a personal incentive and a larger philosophical incentive to want to see as much of my own personal finances running through Bitcoin as possible, because in my that's what I believe strengthens Bitcoin as it continues to compete against larger and larger and larger pots of money.
Okay, so makes a good point. He wants to shove as much money in Bitcoin as possible. So maybe the most efficient way of doing that is getting on $0 and making sure everything goes through Bitcoin. He pays for things with Bitcoin. He gets paid in Bitcoin. Now, on the continuum of Bitcoin believers, this is the far end of the spectrum. This is not Bitcoin as just an investment. He understands, he goes through different price action sometimes, but he understands that this is not just worried about Bitcoin as an investment. This is strengthening the network. I put in some effort so that way it improves Bitcoin in general. It makes sure that there are more transactions. More and more people understand that you can use it. You can buy burgers with it. You can buy beers with it. It is a means of payment as well. And also, it just helps you so that way you don't wait until the end of the month. And then when you want to make your Bitcoin purchase, Bitcoin's moved up a couple percentage points, and then you're like, oh, I'll just wait. I'll wait to buy it. And then it keeps on rallying up, and then you never get to buy it again, right? It kind of eliminates that problem. And since Bitcoin has gone up so aggressively, this has become an asset where, if you would have put your money into it, just each paycheck, even if it was just a couple $100s that made it into Bitcoin, you'd be much better off. Now, I thought about doing the numbers on this, but actually it would be a ton of work to pull out the numbers maybe every 2 weeks for the last 10 years, the Bitcoin price, maybe go through a normal individual that has, 60,000 in income, maybe spends 50,000, puts a couple percent into a 401k, then the rest goes into Bitcoin, and then show how the expenses come out. Maybe their mortgage payment coming out on the first of the month, and show how that stacks up with Bitcoin's price over time. Show how much better off you'd be. Brian, if you can do that, or if you know an easy way of doing that, I think that would convert a lot of people, like me maybe, that still just purchase Bitcoin, or we get paid in Bitcoin for some things, but we don't have everything going through Bitcoin. I think that would convert some people to thinking, no, this should be the base currency. And he points out in that video, like Bitcoin's just a better money. You can see which one is a Ponzi scheme. U.S. national debt spiking, unlimited supply not backed by anything centrally controlled versus Bitcoin, fixed supply backed by energy, no one can control it, and it's tapering off. There's only 5.91% of Bitcoin left. Here, Brian goes through how Altcoin Daily blew up his Bitcoin channel. He goes through, he has some videos talk about 0.21 Bitcoin, why that's a magic number. I actually have them on my channel as well. He talks about why that happens, why multiple people make videos about Bitcoin at like specific numbers. He goes through that in his most recent video, but let me play this clip for you.
Everyone that holds 0.21 Bitcoin is most likely their brain has already shifted over to preferring Bitcoin over fiat money, or they're on their way to doing that. If you're on this video right now, if you're on the other videos on my channel, that's why I like talking about Bitcoin as like being better than fiat money and not a way to make more fiat money, right? Because there's not enough to make a channel about on that. If this was just about investing, if this was just another, like, here's my 4 top stocks to pick or whatever, right? Like, and those do good on YouTube, but that's not what this is about for me. For me, it's the combination of the social movement of Bitcoin being better than fiat and the personal finance kind of concept of, again, fiat structurally devalues, and now Bitcoin offers an alternative. And so that was the genuine reaction to the video. I had not clicked on it until, I'm talking to you right now. Yeah, so here's the thing. There's no exit. I'm not exiting for Bitcoin. People that have switched from fiat money to Bitcoin don't want to exit. That is the exit. So you don't have to be afraid of dumping, because that's not how it works. I genuinely want you to be a part of the Bitcoin network and experience the improvement to your life that it's brought to my life. And the other thing is, there's no alternative. Like, the fiat money system functionally is not positive. So I wouldn't even go back to that if I wanted to, because...
So he makes another good point here. And I think a lot of us, probably all of us, anyone that's had Bitcoin has gone through phases where they're like, I'm never going to sell this. I'm never going to sell this asset because it just doesn't make sense with taxes, with trying to time the market. I'm just going to hold on to it because everyone that's ever done that has done quite well. Then I think most of us too have thought, man, I really wish I had sold, right? If you've been through any amount of time, maybe even 6 months in Bitcoin, you've had points where, like, of course, I think most people on this channel are past the point where they say, I just want to sell and then buy back in at a lower price in a couple weeks or something like that. But on a macro scale, 4-year cycles, we do have 70-80% drawdowns. So a lot of people, they might have a lot in Bitcoin or especially altcoins and then feel a lot of regret because they get a little bit too greedy. They don't take profits. Brian is past that point. He's saying, I don't want to go back to US dollars because if I look over a long enough time span, there's really no point, right? Sure, I might make it through a little dip without having as much exposed to the market or a bear market. But after enough time, you think, I should just hold on to this thing. There's more risk in selling it and trying to time back in to the market than holding on to it through a bear market. Because if you're getting paid in Bitcoin, you can keep on stacking that entire time. To be clear too, Brian's not saying never do anything with your Bitcoin, right? He uses Bitcoin. He trades Bitcoin in a way, but he doesn't sell it, right? He's not selling to go to USD, but he might trade it to buy a house. That's how, people like Brian think about it. You can still use it. You're not going to sit on it forever. It does nothing for you if you just put it in cold storage and never touch it your entire life. Now, maybe you pass it down to your kids, but you need lifestyle chips. You need to be able to live. So it's not this goal of, I need 1,000 Bitcoin and I'm never going to touch it. And it's just this thing that I can always think about and obsess over. No, it's a way to get the things you want in life. Happiness, times with your kids, a house, right? Beer with friends. And, it doesn't necessarily give you directly happiness, but it gives you the ability to buy things that can create happiness, right? It can create memories. So I think that's an important distinction. That's like the next level of maturity in Bitcoin. It's not about just stacking forever and never using it or never selling it. Some people want to use it. Some people want to sell it for USD because they think that it's maybe gotten a little bit frothy from a technical level, and both are okay. Now, I understand both sides of this thought process. Personally, there's some Bitcoin that I'm never going to sell because it just makes sense to hold as a long-term asset. There's more risk, I think, not holding Bitcoin than there's risk holding Bitcoin. But there is a stack that I'm just going to sell this market cycle. Now, I realize that makes some people pissed off. Some people say you should sell everything. I want to still be exposed to this market, but I also stacked extremely heavy, like to the point where I was coming out of pocket on taxes, like from previous money that I had set on the sidelines. I was coming out because I was taking almost everything I could and putting into Bitcoin, especially at the beginning of this year. And I was stacking throughout the bear market, but something interesting happened kind of towards the beginning of the year for me that allowed me to stack a lot more Bitcoin. So I stacked really, really heavy. So at some point, it might become a large enough portion of your portfolio that you want to diversify. You want to diversify into other assets, into maybe more cash flowing assets. Of course, you can always take some Bitcoin and sell it, kind of like the 4% rule with stocks. You don't necessarily need dividends or rental income, but it might be a nice diversifier, right? It also gives you more flexibility to maybe buy more Bitcoin in the future or focus on Bitcoin stacking instead of putting money aside for other assets like a 401k or like rental real estate. If you want that as part of your portfolio and you get that kind of done early, you can push a lot more of your money towards stacking Bitcoin. Of course, you might be buying at a higher price, but that is an option, right? At the end of the day, I think as long as mentally, psychologically, we're not going insane from being too exposed to the market, and as long as we make sure that we do have a good, base, financial base, then we're probably going to be just fine, right? Whether you put 10% of your income away towards Bitcoin or 15, you're probably going to do better than most people. So I think making sure that you feel comfortable with whatever you're stacking is, and however much you're taking profits, I think that goes a long way. Like, don't try to get so dialed in that you start getting paralysis by analysis or start getting uncomfortable because maybe that you should be putting 100% of your income into Bitcoin and you're doing that, but it's making you uncomfortable with the volatility, right? Because then you do make an emotional decision and that will not do well for you long term. So make sure you put an amount away that's significant, but also doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. And Brian goes through 0.21 Bitcoin, why that's an important milestone. That is 5 figures in Bitcoin. I believe we started talking about that. He specifically started talking about it, and then I started talking about it too, when Bitcoin was around $50,000, and that gave you 5 figures in Bitcoin, which is significant. Keep in mind too, values change over time. This is actually a pretty interesting tweet. Bitcoin pumping to 65,000. Adjusted for inflation, the 2021 all-time high is 83,000. By the time we have the next round of printing in the next 6 to 18 months, it will be 95,000. $100,000 nominal Bitcoin price in 2025 is quite possibly barely getting us to 2021 levels. So number go up. Keep that in mind, right? Values change over time, but Bitcoin typically outperforms. A lot of people feel like there's no off-ramp to Bitcoin. They're very comfortable where they're at. Some people want to take profits. I just say make sure that you feel comfortable with whatever you're doing. And I think one of the most important things is just to set a plan ahead of time. Because when we have prices go up drastically or down drastically, that's when you make emotional decisions. If you've set aside a plan, and I know there are some people too that I've talked to recently that say, I'm not going to sell my Bitcoin. I don't care what it goes to. I'm just not going to sell it. I don't need the money. It's better to have it in Bitcoin long term. And I totally get that. Part of it probably has to do with your own situation, right? Like if you make really good money outside of Bitcoin, you have other investments, you don't need to take profits on Bitcoin quite as much. Or if your income isn't so exposed to the market like mine is, you can probably weather out storms a little bit better. But obviously, when a lot of people are watching Bitcoin, that's typically when the price is quite high. That's also when I'm making the most money, and I don't want to pile all the money in at the very top, right? So yeah, it definitely changes on your own personal situation and depending on, where you've put your money in the past. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. It was a bit all over the place, so I apologize for that, but I wanted to get out some of my thoughts and opinions on these very hard topics. Like the hardest thing in Bitcoin at first is buying Bitcoin, stacking Bitcoin, but I think overall the hardest thing is selling Bitcoin. So I think you have to have some kind of plan. Again, if you want to trade crypto as part of a like shorter term strategy or leverage strategy, there's that link to Margex underneath the video. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you watching. Check out Brian, check out his channel as well. Just search Brian Harrington or look up 0.21 Bitcoin. I'm sure he'll pop up. Thank you so much. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.